Breaking tonight, with a single phone call from Ottawa, Mark Carney has just done something nobody in Washington saw coming. He picked up the line to Buenos Aires, and on the other end was Javier Milei, the loudest, most loyal Trump disciple in the entire Western Hemisphere. For context, dear viewers, you need to understand who Javier Milei is inside the Trump universe. Last October, when Argentina's economy was teetering on the edge of collapse, Donald Trump did something American presidents almost never do for a foreign government. He authorized a $20 billion lifeline, 20 billion American taxpayer dollars sent to prop up Milei before a critical midterm election. Trump made it personal. He stood beside Milei in the Oval Office and told the cameras that if Milei lost, Washington would walk away. Milei won, the peso held, the relationship deepened. By February of this year, Argentina and the United States signed a sweeping bilateral trade deal, the first finalized among the 4 Latin American countries Trump had targeted. Argentine beef quotas were quadrupled. Hundreds of tariff lines came down. Milei flew to Washington 14 separate times. He called Trump a key ally. He even joined Trump's so-called Board of Peace at the World Economic Forum in Davos in January. Translation: in Donald Trump's mental map of the world, Argentina is the showpiece, the proof of concept. The American hemisphere run from Mar-a-Lago. And yet, today, May 1st, 2026, the leader of that showpiece country picked up the phone for Mark Carney. Now look at what they actually discussed, because the topics on this call were not casual. They were the architecture of a new trade and security order. First, Mercosur. The two leaders welcomed concrete progress on a free trade agreement between Canada and the South American bloc, a market collectively worth more than $4 trillion in combined GDP. Brazil's own foreign ministry has already said publicly that this deal is on track to be signed before the end of 2026. 8 years of negotiations frozen for most of the last decade suddenly accelerated, negotiating rounds happening every 6 weeks. The 8th round wrapped up in Brasilia in February. The next round is scheduled for Canada this very month. Trade Minister Manindender Sidhu has been pushing publicly for completion by the fall, and while the press releases stay polite, the geopolitical message is unmistakable. Canada is building a southern hemisphere flank, independent of Washington, anchored by Brazil, and now reinforced by Argentina. Second, critical minerals. Carney specifically pointed out that Canada is already among the largest sources of investment flowing into Argentina's mining sector. That sentence sounds technical? It is not. Argentina sits inside the lithium triangle, the geological zone shared with Bolivia and Chile that holds close to half of the world's known lithium resources. Canadian companies have been quietly pouring capital into Argentine brine projects for over a decade. Canadian engineers know the terrain. Canadian exchanges in Toronto and Vancouver are where most Argentine mining deals get listed and financed. While Trump scrambles to lock up critical minerals through trade pressure and bailout politics, Canada already has the relationships, the capital, and the project pipeline. Dear viewers, this is the part Washington missed. The United States can write a trade agreement on paper. Canada has been writing checks on the ground for 15 years. Third, defense. The readout from the Prime Minister's office confirms that Carney and Milei discussed the bilateral defense-industrial relationship and the potential for greater Canadian exports to Argentina. That sentence is buried in the official statement. It deserves a headline of its own. Argentina has been modernizing its armed forces. It has been shopping internationally for aircraft, naval platforms, vehicles, and air defense systems. Until now, the assumption in Washington was that Argentina's military procurement would tilt naturally toward American suppliers, a soft consequence of the Trump-Milei alliance. Carney just put Canada on the table. Canadian armored vehicles, Canadian aerospace components, Canadian shipbuilding capacity, Canadian engineering services, all available, all from a partner who does not come attached to one White House in one election cycle. Fourth, and this is the moment that should have stopped traffic in Ottawa newsrooms, Argentina is joining Operation Nanook. This is the largest, most strategically important military exercise Canada runs inside its own north. The exercise that this past winter alone deployed 1,300 Canadian Armed Forces personnel, 2 M777 howitzers, and nearly 200 vehicles across the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. The exercise that already includes the United States, Belgium, Denmark, and France. Now, Argentina joins the list. Translation: a South American country with its own long-standing polar ambitions and a permanent claim in Antarctica is being invited into the security architecture of the Canadian Arctic. That is not a courtesy gesture. That is Canada drawing a polar partner into a NATO-aligned framework on Canadian terms on Canadian soil. The symbolism alone reframes the conversation about who counts as an Arctic security stakeholder. So why did Milei say yes to all of this? Because, dear viewers, the man Washington thinks of as Trump's most reliable disciple has been quietly playing a much smarter game. Even as Argentina collected the $20 billion bailout, Milei was reaffirming his trade relationship with China at Davos in January. He told an interviewer on stage that China is a great trading partner. China is in fact Argentina's largest single trading partner. Chinese companies like Ganfeng Lithium have already poured billions into Argentine mineral deposits. A Chinese space tracking facility has been operating in the south of the country for years. Argentina's foreign minister has explicitly said the new American trade deal does not exclude Chinese participation in Argentine investment going forward. In other words, Milei takes the American check. He smiles for the photographs at Mar-a-Lago, and then he diversifies because he understands what too few Latin American leaders before him have understood. Political alignment with one administration in Washington is not a strategy, it is a season. When Trump leaves office, the Argentine economy will still need lithium buyers, technology partners, agricultural markets, and capital pipelines. So, Milei is hedging quietly, professionally, like a serious country with serious long-term interests. And he just hedged toward Canada. Now, before you keep watching, if you want to stay ahead of these geopolitical shifts before they break on the mainstream networks, this is the channel that connects the dots for you. We do not react to headlines. We tell you why they happened. Step back and look at what Carney has actually built in just 12 months. France, China, Qatar, and Switzerland in January. India, Australia, and Japan across late February and early March. A trade deal with China to bypass American auto tariffs. A planned visit to Brazil. A deepening Canada-Korea defense partnership anchored in submarines and armored vehicles. An Arctic security dialogue with Finland. A submarine procurement under serious review with German and Korean bidders. An investment partnership with the United Arab Emirates. A Mercosur agreement accelerating towards signature this year. And now a direct line straight into Buenos Aires, the supposed crown jewel of Trump's revived Monroe Doctrine. The pattern is the strategy. Carney is not trying to replace the United States. He is building insurance country by country, mineral deposit by mineral deposit, defense contract by defense contract. His own words at Davos in January described it precisely. Economic interdependence, he warned, is no longer politically neutral. It has become a tool of coercion. For a middle power like Canada, the answer is not isolation. It is strategic autonomy through managed interdependence. A dense web of partners diverse enough that no single capital, including Washington, can ever squeeze Ottawa into submission again. This is not theory anymore. This is operational policy, and today's phone call is the proof. There is one more layer to this story, and it is the layer Washington underestimates the most. Both Canada and Argentina are co-stakeholders in the largest soccer tournament in human history. The FIFA World Cup begins next month on June 11th across 16 cities in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. 48 teams, 104 matches. Toronto and Vancouver hosting the Canadian League. Argentina, the defending world champion, opens its campaign on June 16th in Kansas City. Canada plays its opener on June 12th at Field in Toronto. For the next 2 months, every major world leader will be watching this tournament. Diplomatic meetings will happen on the sidelines. Trade conversations will happen in luxury boxes. Photographs will be taken. Relationships will be cemented in front of cameras. Carney and Milei agreed today to remain in close contact. That phrase in the language of diplomats means they will see each other. They will be seen together, and the world will draw its conclusions. The Trump administration will read this readout tonight and feel the friction. MLE is theirs on paper. He is hedging in practice. Carney is not waiting for permission. He is moving into Latin America, while Washington is still arguing about beef tariffs and steel exemptions and Supreme Court rulings on tariff authority. The Mosor Prize, a $4 trillion trading bloc, the largest lithium reserves on the planet, agricultural giants, and a defense market hungry for non-American suppliers, is sitting on the table. And Canada is the country quietly reaching for it first. If you have watched this far, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. The next 12 months are going to redraw Canada's place in the world, and you will not see this analysis on the legacy networks until weeks after it actually matters. This is the story to watch. The Mercosur deal arriving in the second half of this year. The first Argentine soldiers training in the Canadian Arctic. The first Canadian defense export contract signed in Buenos Aires. The first lithium offtake agreement that locks Argentine output into a Canadian-led North American battery supply chain. Each of these is a brick in a wall that Washington never saw being built. Mark Carney did not raise his voice today. He did not threaten anyone. He did not post on social media. He picked up a telephone. He asked a question. He made an offer. And the most loyal ally Donald Trump has in Latin America said yes to every single point. That is how a middle power moves in 2026. Not with shouting, with phone calls. This is Canada Next. I'll see you tomorrow.